Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got the amazing, incredible, awesome Ali with us today. It's the second time on the show. So excited to have you. Been doing a bunch of things since we last spoke 2.5 years ago. It's been a while. How you doing, Ali?
It has been a while.
How you doing?
I'm good. How have you been?
Pretty good actually. We were just joking before, we hit record that I hope I'm doing the right thing with my life because it doesn't feel like 2.5 years ago, right, that we spoke. So yeah,
No. But I think
yeah,
that's a good sign because if we weren't doing the right things, it might have seemed like longer.
like 20
Time
years,
flies when
right?
you're having fun. I don't
Yes,
know.
that's
Or
for
time
sure.
flies during 2020. It could go either
Oh
way.
yeah, that's for sure. No, yeah, fascinating. Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, definitely tell
Well,
our
that's a good word for it.
yeah, right. Tell our listeners a little bit more, even though you've done this, but for those, we have
hmm
new listenership, obviously. Tell, who you are, kind of what you've been up to, and kind of what you're doing lately, actually.
Yeah. So the short of me is I have my own company as a real estate investor. Um, Backtracking before that, I did the typical, like, go to school, get good grades, get a job with job security, which I think that definition is severely changing these days. So I did all that. I was actually in aerospace engineering, and I landed right out of grad school. I landed what I assumed was going to be my dream job. And to this day, I think it's a job that a lot of people would consider a dream job, but I always say the story of, like, I'll never forget when I walked into my first corporate cubicle and I was like, I'm in my business casual clothes. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so great. And I turned the corner into this cubicle and I just looked at it and I was like, oh, no. Like, I just knew. I was like, I have to get out of here. Like, I hadn't even sat in the chair yet. And so I spent the next 5 years really trying to figure out how to get out of corporate. I wasn't tied to real estate at the time. I didn't know what was actually going to get me out, but I just really started exploring everything. And it was kind of ironic because I was like, well, based on everything I'm reading, everything, I'm kind of studying, I'm either going to have to start a business or do something in real estate investing. And I had no idea that I would end up starting a business in real estate investing. But on the other end of that exploration, I landed in turnkey rental properties, and I was actually just buying them as a buyer for myself because I knew once I got out of corporate, I wasn't going to have that every Friday paycheck or health insurance for that matter. And so I was like, well, while I'm trying to figure out my way out of corporate, I'll at least try and do something smart with my money. And so I started investing in them, and really through all that networking, kind of unexpectedly, I started making all sorts of different connections. I was telling a million people about these turnkey rental properties because up until that point, I really hadn't gotten into real estate investing because I'm not handy. I don't care to be handy. The idea of swinging hammers and flipping, like, I mean, I assumed I could do that, but it just didn't really kind of fit. I wasn't looking for a new job. I wanted out of my job. I wanted to go hang out on the beach all day. So I found turnkey rental properties, which, we can hit on those later, but it was more of a hands off kind of thing. So when people saw that I was buying these, everyone's like, wait, what are you buying? Because people were just kind of finding out about this concept. So through all of that networking, Bigger Pockets brought me on as a writer for their website, and that really just started this big snowball of a now. Let's see, I'm at a 9-year career, knee deep in turnkeys, for good or for bad. So now I help people buy turnkeys, help support through the process, and that's really what I've been doing. The whole time. Excuse me. And since we last talked, the biggest news, I'm still doing the turnkey thing, still doing kind of everything I probably was 2.5 years ago, but I finally put my first book out, which is very exciting. It was kind of my quarantine project. I started a couple of years ago, and life kept getting in the way, and I also didn't know how to publish a book. And I was like, this is hard. So once quarantine hit for 2020, that was my project, and I've been really excited about it ever since. So that's kind of the biggest news. But yeah, it's funny. Right now, real estate had slowed down there for a few years just because prices have gotten so high and everything. And I don't think you could have paid me to guess that 2020 would be the year that it started booming again. So I've been so busy with real estate this year. I haven't been this busy, gosh, in maybe 3 to 4 years. So it's exciting. It's a weird time, but it's exciting too. So that's kind of where I am all this time later.
Wow, thank you so much for that reintroduction. I really appreciate that, and I cannot wait to kind of jump into the book a little bit. But for someone listening to this, and maybe they don't know so much about Turnkey, what is
Mhm.
Turnkey, and like what is that? What is that about?
So turnkey, so the term itself is technically means the condition of a property. So the metaphor is, if you will, all you have to do is stick the key in the door, turn it, and you're making cash flow on day one. Which would mean the property's already rehabbed, it's already got tenants in it, hopefully, and there's property managers on standby to manage this property for you. So the idea is really to for it to be a more hands-off. Basically, you're making money from the get-go because if you buy a distressed shack, you're not going to be making money from the get-go because you've got to spend all that time rehabbing, then you got to put tenants. So turnkey is that you turn the key in the door metaphorically or literally, I guess, and you're making money on day one. So it's actually so you could buy a property next door to you in turnkey condition. But when you hear people talk about turnkey properties, they're mostly talking about, and when I'm talking about it, it's what I'm talking about, is buying properties from turnkey companies. So there's turnkey providers, these companies, they're basically glorified flippers. That's really all they're doing, but they're doing it in bulk and really flipping them off to investors. So in particular markets where cash flow is an option, these companies go out, they buy distressed inventory in bulk, they rehab them in bulk, they place tenants, they have property managers set up to manage the property for you. So you as a buyer, it I'm one of the culprits of calling it hands-off rental properties. I've learned over time that that's a bad word because it kind of suggests to people they don't have to do anything. But you've got to do due diligence. You need to verify everything. Like you still need to be part of the process. But for the most part, it's about the most hands-off way that you can buy a actual property, like a rental property. And so it's good for out of state investors. Like I live in California where there's no such thing as cash flow. And also the entry price is ridiculous. Whereas in Indianapolis, I can buy a whole big house for $100,000 and make money every month on that in cash flow. Can't even buy a bathroom in LA for $100,000. So there's a lot of advantages to it. I think they're great for new investors, all of that. But, it really takes off the pressure of the hard things like rehabbing, you know, negotiating, identifying properties, like all that stuff is hard. So this, turnkeys are kind of a unique opportunity to get in. I know for me, it got me into an industry that I may not have otherwise gotten into because up until that point, I just wasn't wanting to take on another job. So they fit perfect for me.
You mentioned something. You talked about, you got this corporate job that you were really excited about. Then you got to that cubicle and you were like, no, I this is kind
Like,
of not what
oh man,
I
I was just in school for a really long time to hate this.
So, if there's somebody maybe in that situation, or maybe they're about to finish college and, they're thinking,
Mhm.
maybe I don't want to go into corporate America. From everything about real estate, what would you say to that person? Like, how can they really get started?
Funny, I just wrote a whole book on that. Glad you asked.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I part of the intention with the book that I wrote is answering exactly what you're asking is, if you are interested in real estate or whatever and you Google how to be a real estate investor, what do you find? A bunch of how-to guides and a bunch of people telling you what strategy you need to be doing. Everyone's like multifamily property. Well, okay, maybe, but there's so many strategies. And what I did with the book was really kind of try and do a prerequisite to all those how-to guides because, if you want to be successful in real estate, I think it's so important. While it's kind of the more boring route, although you can kind of make it fun and exploration, to really take a step back and learn about the industry and really learn the ins and outs of a lot of the different strategies. Because, you go to one of these guru seminars and they're like, you need to flip houses. Okay, well, that gets a lot of people in trouble. Some people, yeah, 100% should be flipping houses because they're really stinking good at it, or they have that skill set or the interest. But a lot of people don't have that. And so, for any new folks either getting into the industry or getting out of college or whatever, the most important advice I think, and this, even if you're not trying to get in real estate, if you're just graduating college and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I want to go into corporate, just take the time to sit and really explore a couple things. Number one, what all is out there. And number two, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Because I was trying to get out of a job. So if I became a full-time flipper, maybe if I like that job better, but I wasn't going to, and I didn't want a second job. I want to sleep in every day and play at the beach and, design my life how I want to. Well, take it, if I was a wholesaler or a flipper, that's not going to fit that. And so people don't really, it's an exploration, and you've got to be pretty honest with yourself of what is it that you actually want, and based on that, figure out what actually fits that. I think that's the component that so many people miss, and rightfully so, because no one taught us how to do this. We didn't learn this in school. We didn't learn anything. And I mean, the good news is if you get into that corporate job and you end up hating it like I did, you can still learn a heck of a lot there. There's really no lost thing that you can do. You can learn things from, and I'm glad I got into corporate because it taught me about business. I now have that. I understand the office better. like, like it's not a lost cause, but like I said, really taking the time to explore the options and what might actually be fitting for you, and then go from there instead of just jumping right over all of that.
So I was reading sections of your book, and one of the first bit was, hacking or hack your mindset, right? And
Hmm.
obviously, I'm like huge on mindset, and
I
I
love
feel like
mindset.
I
Talk
love
dirty to me.
mindset, right? I kind of probably get similar, messages on BP or email or Instagram. Like I
Uh-huh.
want to get into real estate, and I'm just thinking you need to start from the inside first, from
Yeah.
this inside. I'm kind of pointing to my brain for those listening.
Hmm.
So when you say hacking,
Mindset.
right? When you say hack your mindset, can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, when you I mean, it's kind of like what I talked about earlier when I grew up with the typical mindset that we're all taught. Go to school, get good grades, get a job that's secure, and then, seek financial security. Like that in and of itself is a mindset. And so for somebody to go completely counter to that, that's essentially hacking your mind. It's like, okay, breaking the norms of what we're taught. And we're all taught so many of the same things. Like, it's a wonder any of us escape any of it. And it's being willing to step out of what we're taught, or, like, let's say that. So I said my goal with real estate and getting out of my job was to sleep in every day and go to the beach. Well, that's not really an accepted, kind of thing, but it's what I want. So it's like, how can I hack my life and well, I should say hack my life in order to make that happen. But in order to hack my life, I have to hack my mindset because, I grew up in a family where it's go to work every day, work really hard, and save every penny. That's a mindset. Well, that doesn't work if I want to go hang out at the beach every day, or don't want a corporate job for that matter. And, I think one of the biggest mindset hacks in real estate specifically came from Rich Dad Poor Dad. I know that the very first time I ever read that book, which I assume everyone kind of had the same experience, is that whole book was a mindset hack because it's like, wait, everything I thought I knew about money or understood about money or investing, what? So that was the first kind of chipping away at old mindsets and changing my mindset to better accommodate what it is I'm actually trying to accomplish.
So yeah, I'm so fascinated with how you think, and definitely your writing as well. And you talk about, I think it was the three true currencies, right, in the
Ah,
book, and you
it's my
talked about.
favorite chapter.
Yeah, it's really. Oh yeah, I guess I can say that's mine too. I mean, you talked about, like, I think it was time, money, and then the last one was
Mhm.
like sanity. I was like, what? I was not expecting that. I mean, I'm always talking about like
Uh-huh.
time, time, time. How do you
Yep.
compress time? How do you compress time? Don't go after money, go after time. How do you
Yeah.
leverage time? And then you just dropped it on me, sanity. I was like, well, I feel like I am
Mic
most days.
drop.
I know, right? So for our listeners, for those who can, maybe get the book and read the book as well, just talk a little bit more about that piece actually.
So it's funny you bring that one up. It's literally my favorite chapter. It's not even a very long chapter in the book, but it's like to me, it's like the powerhouse because it's so true. I have a theory that there are three true currencies in life. Money, we all know, and really kind of the world operates around money. But there's two that people really don't seem to consider or think about, which is time and sanity. And I feel like time is starting to come into a lot of conversations. Like now you hear people talking about like the value of time or time value of whatever, and consider your time. Like I feel like that is something that's getting talked about more and more, especially now with like the internet, for example. Back pre-internet, date myself, pre-internet days and all that, like there weren't as many uh hacks, if you will, or ways around where you spend your time. But these days, they're really, you have a lot of ability to adjust for time. And so if you lose time on stuff, you are essentially paying in time. But the one that I feel like nobody ever talks about, which for me of the three, it has the highest value, is sanity. Like at the end of the day, if I can sleep well at night and I'm happy, that's ultimately all I care about. So it's like, well, what's it going to take for me to be happy? Well, I need freedom, which does not work for a corporate job. So, okay, cool. And so like the way that I talk about it in the book is like anytime you need to get something or to buy something, you are going to spend one or more of those currencies. So the example I use in the book is like if I want to build shelves in one of my rooms, I can do it a couple different ways. I can do the whole thing myself, or I can hire somebody. And a lot of people tend to steer away from hiring someone because they want to save the what? Money. Well, if you happen to be a handy person and building things brings you a lot of joy, 100%. You might spend your time, but that's no big deal because you enjoy it. You're gaining sanity because you love it, and you're saving money. So it's that configuration. For me to build shelves, I would lose every last ounce of my sanity, and I would spend a heck of a lot of time because inevitably, first of all, I don't know how to build shelves. Inevitably, I would take forever because I don't know what I'm doing. But then when I mess it all up, I'm going to spend that much more time trying to fix it. Chances are it's going to circle back on me and I'm going to have to end up spending more money to fix the problem I created. But, so for every individual and every situation, there's a consideration is like, okay, how am I going to get the thing that I want? What's most important in this equation? For me, like turnkey rental properties are more expensive than buying a distressed house and all that kind of stuff. But sanity and time are more important to me than money. I would rather spend more money in order to keep my time and sanity. Whereas other things, maybe time and sanity work for me and I can save the money on that end. So I think it's a huge concept, I think, because it can not dictate, that's kind of the wrong word, but it can help you navigate the real estate investing industry because it's like, well, what of those things are most important to you and what strategies are going to take those things? Like, do you have $1 million and you just want to drop it into something, or do you want to flip houses and that brings you joy and you don't mind spending the time on it? So, it can kind of help you make those decisions. But even in life, do you want to hire a maid to clean your house? Well, on one hand, you can pay the money for it, or if you don't pay the money for it, do you like cleaning your house? And how long is it going to take? For me, it takes about 7 hours to do what takes a maid about 2 hours. And the amount that I pay the maid, I say the maid like I have a maid. I actually don't have a maid. But and I feel like housekeeper is a better word, but I've hired housekeepers in the past, and what I pay them for 2 hours is pales in comparison to what I would lose by me cleaning my house for 7 hours. Plus they clean better. Their stuff smells better than I do. And I don't like cleaning. So, it's that really consideration. And I feel like if you take the time to really think about that, it can change everything. Because like if I had gotten into flipping, I would have lost every ounce of time and sanity I owned, and it probably would have burnt me from and jaded me from real estate investing. I would have assumed that the whole industry is that terrible. So, but before I got into that hole, I was able to find something that actually did work for me. And I did. Sanity's, no matter what strategy you're in, your sanity is going to get tested regardless. But in comparison to how much sanity I would lose with some of the other strategies, given my strengths and all that kind of stuff, I'd rather pay more money to get something more hands off.
That is so, I just love everything you said. And it's so fascinating because I always talk about temperament, right? And that's
Mm.
one of the reasons I stopped flipping because I didn't have the temperament for it. I didn't want to deal
Mm.
with, contractors. The first three
I
letters is
hate
where you should pay
dealing with
attention.
contractors.
Yeah, con is the and everything you're saying just makes absolute sense to me. Like, do you have that that I would like, how much fuel of sanity do you have to expend, right? So
Yeah.
it just makes absolute sense. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing
Yay.
that.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think on what you're saying too is like, even if you're willing to expend your sanity, it's like, how successful are you ultimately going to be? Because one of the other chapters in the book is talking about don't strengthen your weaknesses, like play on your strengths. What are your strengths? And chances are your strengths are also the things you enjoy. And that probably contributes positively to your sanity. Whereas if you're swimming upstream and you're losing sanity along the way, how far are you actually really ever going to get? Like I feel like there's a cap as far as like when you're just swimming upstream trying to get things accomplished all the while losing your sanity. We have enough reasons in the world today to lose our sanity. We do not need help by pursuing things that we're just not cut out for. I don't want to say cut out because we can all do whatever we want, but like that you're not as natural at.
Yes. Like that is so good. So good. Ali, I wish we could keep going on. Oh my goodness. It's
Ah,
so we have to bring you back again. This is
oh,
so
hate when
good.
that happens.
This is so good. But we're definitely dwelling into the quick round. These are going to be quick questions, quick
Oh boy.
answers.
I'm like, ooh, thinking cap. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Like, stretch it out.
Stretch it. Stretch it. First
Like,
question.
oh,
One
I didn't have my second cup of coffee.
First question. What makes Ali unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next girl or the next guy?
um, I am unique because I don't let anything stop me from pursuing what it is I want. Whether that's other people, whether that's logistics, whether that's fear of failure. If I want something, I will absolutely do whatever it takes to hopefully try and get that thing.
Love it. Next question. What was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing you picked up from that book?
The last book I read was my own, and what I picked up from that is I hate editing books. Do you know, it's so sad that I have been so fried from being able to read books for most of this year because I had to read my own so many times.
Mhm.
It's almost painful, but let's see. I had to have read something. Um, um, oh, I know what actually, I have it right here. Well, obviously, I haven't finished it. It's not helpful for real estate at all, but it is working on my book. So I don't have much
Nice.
to contribute on that one because my brain I can't read
Wow.
lines. I
What
think
so
I'm
is that
traumatized.
what's the title on that one? The first 1000?
Your first 1,000 copies, like how to actually get a book out. It's
Wow.
funny. Putting a book out is such a different skill set and it's hard. Like, I have a degree in rocket science and this is hard. And so, but I think books for me, if you could see my bookshelf, books have given me every ounce of education that I use today. Like my college and everything is not what I use all the time. So I'm constantly reading books of learning how to do all this. Because again, we're not taught any of it on our own.
Absolutely. So you're writing books, you're, staying sane by, buying Turnkey rentals, you're busy, you're
I've
surfing,
never
hanging
put
out.
those two things in the same sentence. There's I said not all strategies keep all your sanity.
Oh man. What do you do for fun?
Oh gosh. I do anything for fun. We're coming up on winter. I love skiing and snowboarding. I do live near the beach. I love anything outdoors, hiking. I love hanging out with friends for happy hour or brunch. Um, my absolute, this sounds ridiculous, but my absolute, one of the most fun things I do, although not this year for worldwide pandemic reasons, I volunteer in prisons in California. And it doesn't sound like that should be very fun, but it truly is one of my favorite things on earth. So I miss that right now. But yeah, there's very little that I don't do for fun. And sometimes fun means sitting on the couch and watching something ridiculous on television.
Nice. Well, I mean, this is just an amazing chat. If there's somebody listening and thinking, I really like Ali, maybe I want to buy my first turnkey right now. Where's the best place? Or maybe your book. Can you talk about your book? How can I forget that? Your book. And then
Well,
how people can connect with you.
so I may have set up a link just for your listeners to
Oh,
get a free
thank
copy
you,
of the book.
Ali. Thank
It's a
you.
free digital copy of the book. So my company's name is hipsterinvestments.com. So if you go to hipsterinvestments.com/dwellin, there is a link to get a free digital copy. If you're like me and you're obsessed with paperbacks, there's a link to the Amazon thing, if you prefer that. But in that, you can, there's contact information for me. You can see my company's website, everything turnkey. I've been doing a lot of YouTube videos lately. So basically just go to that link, get your free book, and then it'll kind of connect you to everywhere else that I am also. And my only ask is, in exchange for the free book, if you'll leave a review on Amazon once you read it, that would be phenomenal, because, I'm in that every review counts, as a brand
Yes.
new author. It's really kind of what says whether a book makes it or not. So anyone willing to leave a review, I'd be super appreciative.
And I'll definitely leave mine. So yeah. Ali,
Yay!
thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.